You've likely been hearing a lot about the websites DraftKings and FanDuel lately. Before this week, they were all the rage, the way to capitalize on your sports knowledge and maybe, just maybe, win big money fast. Not by betting on the outcomes of games, but on the individual performances of a team of players you put together. But now, terms like insider trading and illegal gambling operation are getting tossed around, and that can mean serious trouble, especially for the big names and organizations tied up in it all. Fox Sports and NBC are among the two sites many investors. Major League Baseball, the NFL, pro hockey, basketball, all deeply involved. So the big question is it even legal? And should it be? Joining me now to discuss that and more are Roger Abrams, who teaches law at Northeastern University, co-wrote Sports and Law. Good to see you, Roger. Scott Otto, he's the founder and CEO of Fast Strike Sports, which is looking to become a competitor of those two things. Scott, good to meet you. And Evan Horowitz, policy writer, I have no idea what that means, at the Boston Globe, the answer man, essentially, who's fast becoming an expert in this world of fantasy sports. Gentlemen, good to see you all. So sports betting is illegal, but fantasy sports betting is not illegal, or it is? What's the bottom line?
Bottom line is, maybe.
So what does that mean?
There is a carve-out in the federal law that allows for fantasy sports betting precisely because it doesn't involve the outcome of games. But state laws rely on a different standard, and state by state, it's not really clear where it's legal and where it's not legal.
But my understanding is the reason for this federal exemption is because of this fiction, to me at least, that this is a skills decision. It's not just a gambling thing. Is that the notion?
That's a big deal at the state level for sure. In the federal statute, it's mentioned also, yeah.
Okay, so Roger, to you, so many laws about casinos and gambling, every little detail, hundreds of pages long. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is totally unregulated. Is that where it is?
Totally unregulated.
Totally unregulated.
And happened, mushroomed overnight. And everyone has jumped on board, seeing lots of money down the pike. The problem is, of course, is that the game, while it involves some skill, you have to be able to manipulate a computer, doesn't require a lot of skill. It's all chance. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. The only problem is it's illegal.
So if you had a member of Congress sitting here who was at one of those ridiculous hearings about steroids, like they should be involved in this,
yes,
where they're getting autographs from Roger Clemens when the cameras are on, and you had sodium pentothal was injected, and you said to them, okay, wait a second, you regulate all this other stuff to the most anally small degree. Why is this not regulated? What would they say?
They would say, we're going to do that. We're going to look into it. We've collected information. And the New York Attorney General is collecting a lot of information.
No, but he's looking at insider trading, this narrow thing where one guy from one thing won $250,000, allegedly, even though they deny it, using inside information from his place to bet on the other place.
Congress is not going to be able to avoid this issue because it involves 30, 40, 50
I'm going to tell you in a minute
people.
why they are going to avoid it. Just wait a second. So what is your deal? What is this Fast Strike Sports? What are you trying to do?
Well, we were not actually competing with DraftKings and FanDuel. We were focused on making games for the state lotteries because we felt, like we've just been talking about, that the daily games are a game of chance and they should be regulated, and the best place to do that is the state lotteries.
And which is what Deb Goldberg said in the Herald this morning, the state treasurer, is the notion is this is a younger audience than bets on the lottery, even though we spend more money on the lottery than any per capita state in America by far, that essentially we'd get that gambling from younger people on the lottery.
Yeah, the lotteries have an aging user base. They need to pull in the same crowd that's playing fantasy games.
Is that happening anywhere?
Montana has a fantasy lottery game.
Within the lottery?
That they've had, for like 7 or 8 years now. Yeah, they do football and NASCAR in Montana.
Okay, so 44 states, 44 or 45 states now are doing this thing and that sort of deal. The Attorney General of New York, as I say, is looking at insider trading. I thought, until I got this statement from Maura Healey earlier today sent to us, that she was looking at the whole legality issue. However, here's what she said. Neither federal law nor Massachusetts state statutes prohibit fantasy gaming. My focus is on ensuring there are proper consumer protections in place. It sounds like she's dealing with a regulatory issue, but essentially saying it's legal. The genie's out of the bottle. Is that what she's saying?
I haven't seen that before. It sounded like it.
I'm not making it
sound.
up.
No, I trust you. I have every confidence
fine.
that that's actually what she said. I mean, I want to emphasize something else with the kind of skills thing. Even if it is a game of chance, chance has laws. Probability has laws. And you can't really understand the current scandal unless you realize that it's not the kind of game of chance where anybody can win, like toss a coin and nobody knows anything. It's a game of chance where some people know the laws of chance better and they're going to win.
So then why isn't
there are specialists?
They can apply the same rules to poker.
Yes.
Why is that not? Why is
I think that really is the question. That really is the question.
Why is sports betting
Where
not
on
legal?
this spectrum do you put this? Is it a pure game of skill? Is it a pure game of chance? Or is it like most games, like poker?
Right. And the skill that he's talking about is understanding what other people are betting on, basically. Because in terms of just picking a team, everybody has the information out there about which players are the best players. It's readily available. It's built into the
But the best
pricing.
players cost more
Right.
money.
Right.
Right.
Right. So everybody has that information, right? So the real thing is, well, if everybody's picking the same ticket, you don't want to have that same ticket because you'll get less money if you win. You're spending
And that's why that guy, even though they deny it, was allegedly
Right.
involved in insider trading, because he was
Exactly.
talking about the overlooked players.
Right.
Now, Roger Abrams, I can't believe I'm going to tell you where you're wrong on a legal issue. The reason Congress is never going to deal with this in a serious way, NFL, NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, they're all knee-deep in this thing. They are more powerful than all 535 members in Congress.
And so
no?
what Congress will do is bless them and make sure, I think, that this kind of scandal that we've had this week will not be repeated, so that there is transparency, so that the people who work at these two major organizations don't do any of the betting. We need to clean that out, because there are too many people whose money, whether it's $2 or $2,000, is on the line. And Congress won't allow that to go on and to undermine the legitimacy. I think they'll let it go on.
But getting back to Evan's point for a second, your point about the skill versus chance, where's the fine line? I mean, I assume there's a lawsuit someday on all these other things saying just what we discussed a minute ago. Poker, you name it, any kind of gambling obviously requires some intelligence and skill. So ultimately, someone's going to file a lawsuit and say if this is legal, then everything is legal. No holds barred, right?
Those suits have been brought. They've been brought by the state of New Jersey, which want to get into this business. They want to have a sports book, just like
Las
they have
Vegas,
in Vegas,
which is the only state where it's legal, right?
And most recently, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals said no, those distinctions drawn by federal law are fine.
As
I
of
would
now.
say two things. One is, even when you're talking about questions of legality, remember, it's legal until it isn't.
Yes.
That is, it's perfectly possible that a court will intervene and reinterpret the law. It's perfectly possible that Congress will act. I do want to disagree about whether they can bless this.
Yes.
I just think the political economy of it is such that, and I mean, there's a big lobbying interest from casinos, right? So you mentioned there's a lot of money in the online fantasy betting. That's true. So they'll be putting pressure on Congress to bless it. But there's also a lot of money from casinos who will want sports outside of Vegas. They'll want sports betting. So they actually may not like the current status quo where fantasy betting, that's legal, but they can't have a sports book. So I think one way to imagine this congressional blessing is let's open up sports betting even wider. Instead of shutting this down, let's just even level the playing field will open up.
Didn't the commissioner of the NBA recently say he wants to allow sports betting in the NBA?
Adam Silver said that, and no one else has picked up on that yet, but people will follow the European model where gambling is allowed
on everything.
On everything.
Okay, before we go, you've done fantasy sports betting?
No.
Yes, he has. Have you?
Not daily games. No.
What does that mean? Seasonal.
Season-long games.
DraftKings is the daily thing,
daily
right?
games, yeah.
How about you?
In 1997, I spent the summer playing fantasy baseball
Is that
with
really
friends,
true?
and yes,
How'd
cutting
you do?
out little. Not well. No, I was never very good at it, but at least nobody was taking a cut of the pot, so my odds were pretty good, and it was a summer-long activity.
Even if you're not good at it, you're great at
explaining.
explaining it. That's all that really matters, Evan. Roger Abrams, great to see you.
Good to see you,
Scott,
John.
pleasure to meet you. Evan, we keep reading you in the Boston Globe. Do well.